How's it going? Nice to meet you.
Yeah. I was really surprised that you hadn't done an interview like about your voice acting stuff before, considering how many roles you've had and everything.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. It's such a weird business. So we feel like we're all connected. We feel like we're always talking to people, but then in the end, we're always working, alone in a dark booth without
Right.
anybody, especially these days. But I do apologize. They are doing some renovations outside of my building right now. So if you do hear some lawnmowers and stuff in the background, that's that drone happening there. So
Okay. So I can just start from the beginning and ask what made you want to pursue acting in general?
So honestly, I've always just kind of been a performer. My mom knew from like when I was 4 years old that's the life that she was destined to was one of going to see shows and all that stuff. So I actually got my start in opera. And so I was a little boy soprano back at the age of 10, 11, 12, something like that, through choirs and stuff like that. And then, yeah, gradually became more and more enthralled with working on stage, which then led to going to college for it. And then I went to school in Pittsburgh at Point Park University, got a degree in musical theater. And then from there, ended up touring with Sesame Street Live, and went around the world a few times with them. And then settled here in Dallas and heard that these opportunities were around for voice acting. And I said, that sounds fun. And so actually I was on the wait list for Funimation for a little over a year, back when they used to do the open calls every year. So when I finally got the call, I got to go in and work with Joel McDonald, who was also a theater guy. And so he was able to talk me through kind of the basics and how to transfer the skills and everything into the voice acting. And since then, it's just I've been very lucky with some of the opportunities that I've gotten, whether it's with Funimation or some of the other studios around town. And yeah, hopefully looking to grow that as we move forward.
Was there ever any aspiration for you initially to move to LA or New York instead?
So I actually lived in New York for about 3 years, but I kept getting stage work outside of the city.
Oh, okay.
So I'd go off on this tour, I'd go out to this theater. And so it just kind of seemed like, okay, well, if that's not where I need to be for some of this stuff, I can figure out another path. There's always that glorious path that we all dream of, either coastal or Chicago, of making it big. But honestly, there's so much living to be made as a regional artist as well. And, especially with these opportunities, pandemic proved that we don't need to be necessarily centralized to be in one location in order to have a career. Mm-hmm. So, especially with studios like Sound Cadence and Studio Nano kind of opening up to kind of a more of a worldwide casting process. It's been really great to see some of the cast lists coming out and like, holy crap, this was 9 countries represented, in just this one show. Yeah.
So what was your first anime role then?
My first, one of my very first sessions. So I think I did One Piece with Joel early on, and he had me do a whole bunch of little bits. And I remember then we transitioned into a Wallace set. So it was for One Piece. I don't remember what arc it was. This was years ago now. But I remember being like, okay, improv, actor. And so this creature was chewing up the side of a building, I remember. And I said, in the Wallace session, I said, ooh, performance art. I love this. And we finished that little take, and Joel goes, excuse me, did somebody mention performance art in there? I was like, oh yeah, that was me. And he goes, let's do another take. Maybe lessen the impact there. It's like, okay. But my first role was actually in an anime called Cheer Boys that was being directed by Aaron Desmuth. And so he gave me kind of my first opportunity to figure out the overall process and how to keep a character going across multiple episodes and things like that. So I played, oh God, what was his name now? I can't remember.
Kaoru. Kaoru.
Kaoru, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Got a list on my phone somewhere, but yeah, that was fun. And then from Cheer Boys, the next thing that I did was Nanbaka, however you want to say it, which was just a wild show. I loved working on that. It's still one of my favorites. I think everybody involved still goes back to that one, just being like, oh, it was such a precious little show. I
Yeah.
loved it so much. There's just so much sparkle. You couldn't help but love it.
How could you relate to Honey as a character then?
Listen, that was fun. I had actually recently gotten off of doing a production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch at a theater in town.
Yeah.
So for the first session in the booth, I couldn't figure out the voice that we wanted to go with, and so we were just playing with things, and we eventually settled on something that was a little bit more flamboyant and a little bit more sparkly, we'll say, because that's the term that we use throughout the show. Is give it some more sparkle with the glitter. And then we just eventually ended on that, and I realized after the first few takes that the way that I got into the voice was I actually had to stand as if I were still in heels.
Oh yeah.
And so that's the voice that came. There's really silly things that you do in the dark to get where you need to be sometimes. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And Aaron taught me a lot, especially in that show with energy levels and pickups and stuff like that. So.
And did you take to dubbing easily, or was it difficult for you at first?
So as I mentioned before, so I left college to go on tour with Sesame Street Live because I'm also a puppeteer.
Yeah.
So I actually think that something that helped me in my process was being able to, the equation of, flaps to a puppet mouth is kind of very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could then watch out of the corner of my eye and understand the flaps a bit just with my puppet brain, which allowed me to focus more on the words on the other screen. So I don't think it was too much of a learning curve. Obviously, there are more challenging moments throughout anybody's career with trying to match the flaps and how to fit those words into those flaps. But yeah, I don't think there was too much of a learning curve when it came to that because of my puppetry experience.
Right. Yeah, I know it just kind of depends on everybody. Like everybody I've talked to, just sometimes it's really difficult, and sometimes even regardless of what experience they have, like can be really easy.
Yeah. I know, Mark Hamill said that dubbing is some of the hardest voice acting work because it's all of those layers of matching, performance, energy, flaps, all of that on top. So yeah.
Right. And were you already aware of anime? Like, were you a fan of anything?
So it was really strange going into my first few sessions and seeing names that I had grown up watching, in college and stuff like that. And then they were suddenly our directors and people that I, not idolized at that point. I wouldn't call myself a huge anime fan.
Okay.
But in college I always had Cartoon Network on, or Adult Swim, and all of those, the older shows that I grew up with were definitely part of the inspiration. Then when I found out that it was here, I was like, that's insane. Nobody can make a living like that. And then suddenly here we are, years later.
Moving on to another central role, Shiro and Zuko
Yes, he was ridiculous. So fun fact about Kyle Ignaczi, my voice did not change till I was like almost 15. So I was, in high school or entering high school at that point. So when Aaron and I were working on some of the other sessions for Nanbaka, sometimes my voice would crack in a way and I'd be like, okay, he'd be like, hold on to that. That's really useful for other roles, when you get to play teenagers and stuff like that. And so when it came to Tsugumomo, we played with a lot of the very iconic sort of moments of the voice cracking. When he's at the dinner and looking at the menu and trying not to, all of those little breaks are something that we worked pretty meticulously on, specifically for Shiro, and that was ridiculous. Yeah, some of those episodes were just half laughter at
right.
What was on the screen and what was coming out of mouths at that point, whether it was my performance or he's giving direction as in try to be more 13-year-old boy, yeah.
What is the case where you've had to alter your voice the most for a role?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Another funny story about Kyle Ignaczi as a voice actor. So I was cast to play one of the princes in One Piece for a movie that was happening a few years ago. And so I played Sai, one of the princes, And that for the movie, they ended up taking our voices and modulating down a little bit. So years later, when they start doing that arc on the TV show, you know, on their first session, and they play it back to me, and I go, guys, I gotta say that's not me. I don't know who put my name in on this. I appreciate the opportunity. I would love to stay here and record this, but I don't want to take somebody else's role. And they were like, oh, you know, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. We'll go back and double check. And so I continued on with my day, and about an hour later or whatever, Mike McFarland comes knocking on my door and goes, Kyle, I need to come play something for you. And they realized that, yeah, what happened is they modulated the voice slightly down, and it changed enough that I couldn't emulate it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we came back to the TV show, it was definitely me. And I laugh about that quite often because I feel like a fool. But yeah, that sort of gruff. It's not my typical voice, as you can probably tell.
Right.
So adding those layers of grit and grime, and yeah, that's probably the most I've had to change it. There have been some other ones. Giovanni from Epithet Erased is me on, you know, heightened emotions, firing on all cylinders. So that's probably the most exhausting voice that I've done, as well as having to adjust my own sort of intonation within.
Right. Yeah. I know another flamboyant character, Kirsch Vermillion.
Oh, Kirby Vermillion, yes. That was very much harkening back to the Hedwig tonality that I had there. That's a really fun one that I wish I got to do a little bit more of, but it was such a fun experience. And then actually probably the only other interview that I've done until this was with when they first introduced me as Kirsch.
Oh.
And I got to do that with Bryn, who played Mimosa. And so it was one of the few times that I got to actually sit with another voice actor. It was great.
Yeah. And one thing I did think was really cool, how did you become involved with the fandub for the Umineko games?
Oh, I really hope that happens someday. I'm still under NDA for it, so I'm still hopeful, but I can't say anything more about that.
Okay.
But yeah, there was no whole audition process the Sound Cadence had. I know there was a big passion project for some of the people that were working over there. And yeah, then suddenly, you know, Seventh Expansion got popular again. These other animes started coming out. So there's still hope for it, but like I said, I can't say anything more than that, unfortunately.
Okay.
But it was such a wild ride, and yeah, such a, you know, we did the introduction video, which is 20 minutes of you know, proof of concept essentially, and that was just really cool to see how hardcore the fan base was, and how willing they were to go along for the ride, even if it was just, you know, just for the announcements and all of that time. I still keep in touch with some of them via Twitter interaction. You know, we just had October, so it's a big one for Umineko. Every beginning of October. It's always fun to see those memes popping through and see what's being said about it.
And do you have a personal preference for more comedic roles, or do you prefer darker roles?
I don't actually. I've been very lucky in some of these seasons, especially to have sort of the dichotomy between the two, depending on what role I'm playing. High energy is something that is very fun, obviously, but also very exhausting. But getting the chance to actually sit there and delve deeper into a character and to be able to figure out what does make them tick. You know, I just a couple seasons ago, we did Gleipnir at Sound Cadence. And as the alien, I mean, we had to go back and do some pickups. I was like, oh, let's find out a little bit more about the story, and then go back and see how we can sort of filter some of these little nuances back into it. And that was really, really fun to collaborate with the director also, just to see, oh, so this episode, that whole show, every episode was like, what's happening?
Right.
Yeah, the other one that actually surprisingly got deep was Actor Song Connection.
Mm-hmm.
Also with Sound Cadence recording it. And yeah, that was another one. Every episode is just like, what? I'm sorry, what's happening? Who's what now? but yeah, some of those episodes got pretty intense, especially the hospital scene and all that.
One thing I always like to ask, it's on that same topic with voice actors, is what's the like single darkest emotional headspace you've had to get into for a role so far?
That would be for the proof of concept for Battler in Umineko. That was because if you listen to it, it is 20 minutes of us narrating as well as acting within the scene on top of that.
Yeah.
And so within the same session, I think we did all my stuff in like an hour and a half. So having to go from, kind of the smarmy cousin that's there and he's always got something to say, to then just absolute devastation and seeing, kind of the innards of your parents exposed to the world and, the rain falling, just getting yourself in that headspace of death and destruction and gloom and knowing that there's no way out at that point. That was tough, but even tougher was doing the narration over top of it.
Yeah.
And then it was just pulling back to, how broken you are when you experience something like that, and you have to remove the emotion from it in order to see it from a distance, and I think that's also some of the magic about if we ever get to do that as a full audiobook, because it is that self-reflection, that self-inspection that you get to have. And I think that's one of the greatest things about that entire series is it's constantly trying to figure out what is real or what's happening on all these different levels. You're firing on existentialism, you're firing on the reality of it all right in front of you, but also just the symbolism and all the tropes that go along with how he's written the story. It's so good. Yeah.
Do you have a particular process for getting out of a darkness like that?
I've been very lucky with the acting teachers that I've had over the years. I don't feel like I ever get stuck because the biggest thing is always just to remember to breathe. Even when I teach puppetry, I have the same process for puppetry as I do with acting in general and how I create a character. And actually, you can't see it, but right above me right now is my sign to myself of, breathe, focus, release the tension, find your intention. Those are kind of the 4 steps that I go by in creating any character. And the basis of it all is to breathe. And obviously there are times where you find yourself a little bit more involved or a little bit more overtaken or overwhelmed by emotion. But I remember even in college, I had this teacher so I grew up getting a lot about the full history of Kyle Ignaczi here. I grew up with chronic asthma. I was hospitalized multiple times for bronchitis and pneumonia every year.
Oh, wow.
I am not built to be anybody that uses their voice. Physically, I am not built to be anybody that uses their voice. I'm not built to be a singer. I have different resonance chambers. I was born tongue-tied, and that wasn't clipped until middle school, and I had to learn how to talk all over again. Which I gotta say, middle school is the perfect time for any young person to have to learn how to talk all over again. Everybody's really forgiving. Yeah. So yeah, I had teachers that would constantly work with me to figure out the deeper breathing. And once we figured out how to access that, you could connect better to emotion, but you could also figure out how to release it, at least in my circumstance, a little bit easier. So it also helps to have, a very supportive partner that when you come home and you do have those off days of just, can I just sit here? Can I just be with you? That they're willing to do that. Plus we have an adorable little pup who is just the best little thing. And yeah, when she senses that it's bad for either me or my wife, then she's very, very intuitive that way. And that's helped a lot, especially through the pandemic, when we've either felt a little broken down or that opportunity seems to be passing us all up because the world insists that we should just be back at work and the world insists that it's not happening anymore. Yeah, it's good to have a support system.
Right. Yeah. And it does make me think to ask, have you gotten to sing for any anime role yet or no?
I have. So yeah, Actor Songs Connection. I got to sing a song and then we got to do a big finale number as well. I also got to do, I don't remember what show it was for, but one of my favorite sessions that I ever did was a singing Wallace session where we played these tiny little Ewok looking creatures, and the entire song was just and it got stuck in all of our heads for weeks. And there is nothing better than being in a tiny little booth with 3 other grown men with the director in your ear saying, more adorable. And all of us men just, it was ridiculous and so much. I think that was like me, Ben Phillips, Derek Snow, and Sean Gann. I think we're in on that. I might be wrong on that, but it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the opportunity to sing. I wish we got to do it more, especially when with all the dub songs that were coming out. Actor Songs Connection was a crazy process for us, but I can't even imagine on the production side how much they had to keep up with, because they were also mixing at least a song an episode, I think 2 in most circumstances. But I still do a lot of stage work too, so I actually just closed a show, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, this past week. Yeah, that's how time works. It's been a crazy few weeks. And then before that, I was able to do Music Man, which is the first professional production back here in Dallas. So
okay, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What about for Ensemble Stars? Did you get to do anything for that, or like singing?
For that one, I didn't sing. No, I just did a lot of announcing. And oh man, during that one, I was in, I think, 2 other stage shows at the time, plus all of the VO commitments on top of that. That was a time where I learned that I had to take better care of myself and find ways to rest, even when it's not conducive to your schedule. Because there was a session I went in and did not have much of a voice. We had to re-record it. Not my proudest moment, but yeah.
This is going back to a more really wholesome show with my roommate as a cat.
That was so fun. I think also because we'd had our dog for a while at that time, but I think at that point in like building the relationship with our dog, it was starting to see all those parallels with how dependent we are on each other and how we don't even realize it. But when you start seeing your lives and how they interact and interweave, that was a pretty special one. And it's one of the few that I can easily share with my nieces and nephews and not have to worry about contents for some of the other roles that I've had. But yeah, that's one that I've been happy to share with them. So that was really nice. That was a show that I like to watch every week as it came out, to see what everybody else was doing, just to see how we could all play off each other a little easier.
Sure, it would have been fun with your character in Touken Ranbu, Fudo.
Yes, that was so I just gotten done doing another stage show. The director Jade had seen me in Memphis, in which I played Huey, and he's got some moments in the show where he's a little off-centered, we'll say. And so yeah, she was like, let's play with a little bit of that drunkenness for here. And one of my scenes, I got there and we started recording. I said, hold on, who is that? Who is that voice there? And it was the bartender in the bar scene, and it was Randy Perlman, who's a dear friend of mine. We've done several shows together here in Dallas. And it's always nice to walk in and hear somebody that you know and have that little game, that little moment of who is that? Yeah, that was a really fun one too. It's an easy industry to have fun in. It's also easy to get lost in. But yeah, I'm really grateful to go in every time that I'm called and to have these sessions and work with the people I am. It seems a little hokey, but I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately as we're trying to re-enter the world again. Just how lucky we are to have a good community and a good support system, here in Dallas and beyond. Mm-hmm. Where are you based in?
Oh, I'm outside of Minneapolis.
Oh, nice. So Sesame Street Live used to be based there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, V Corporation. So I've been to Minneapolis several times for our different production periods. I have several friends who also went to college there. So.
All right, that's cool. And then badminton anime with Hanebado.
Hanebado. Yeah. That was another ridiculous one. So the first episode comes out, and they're like, "You're kind of playing this goof. He's a little bit of a creep, but we need to make him wholesome somewhat, because we knew he wasn't full creep. We knew that there had to be some sort of distinction and arc later on. But that first episode is just a weird take on the character. But in the end, being able to be that was probably one of my first more of an adult sort of roles that I got to play. Where I got to be the mentor and teach some life lessons along the way, and just a really, really great cast. It was Kyle Phillips, I believe, and Tabitha Ray that were the directors for that. And then Tabitha ended up taking over, I think, all of my sessions that I got to do. We got to know each other pretty well throughout that process.
And of course, another role that's more unlike a lot of roles that you've done is Spearman, Goblin Slayer.
Oh yeah. He's ridiculous. Yeah, we got to do a lot of play with him and just make a lot of choices. I like to play with those characters that are very full of themselves, and just see no wrong, but always have that little bit of an imbecile aspect to them, But then we got to revive the characters again for an unofficial D&D campaign to raise money for Black Lives Matter last year that Hayden Devio put together. I think that's how you say her name. Their name. But they played the priestess in that.
Yep.
So put that together for us, and we had a really fun time. It was supposed to be a one-shot, but we got so far into it and didn't quite finish. We were like, okay, there's so much more to do, so we ended up doing a second evening of that as well. That was super fun.
And who do you think you relate to the most in terms of everybody you've played in anime?
Oh, in terms of all of my roles, there is absolutely 1,000% Giovanni Potage within me. Okay. I think as frightening as that may be, yeah, I am chaotic good, I'd say, on the spectrum in most circumstances. So yeah, he's definitely one of the ones that is most near and dear to my own personal life. Yeah.
And do you always find, even if with how dark a role is, do you always find something to relate to in the character, or does it just depend?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, you have to believe what you're saying. Right. And sometimes it is challenging to find reason and to find a true intention and true understanding in what they're doing. But our job as an actor is not to judge. Our job as an actor is to understand. So I think one of the biggest, superpowers that we could have is the ability not only to have empathy, but to recognize empathy, and what we can do with it. The most villainous role I've played, or some of the darker stuff, but Copcraft was one.
Yep.
It was only 2 episodes that I got to do, but the conviction that you have to have in order to bring a sense of reality to the character and a sense of purpose to the character is there. Nineheart and Fairy Tale a little bit, I guess. Golden Kamui.
Okay. Yeah.
That was a fun one to try and figure out with Jeremy Inman, just because he is such an odd character that goes from 0 to 100 before you even ask him of it. Face tattoos and all of that stuff. But it's not just about putting on a creepy voice. It's not about finding a way to make it a little bit, smarmy or gross. It's finding the need that they have in those moments. And actually, now that I'm looking at this list here that I put in front of me, I did an episode of voice matching for League of Galactic Heroes.
Oh, okay.
And I had to voice match for an episode for Hildesheim. I think that's how you say it. Very, very Trumpian sort of character that was just kind of over the top. And literally, I mean, not to get political, but it was fascist propaganda that was on the screen for what I was voice matching as they were zooming out of the crowd and had the flags and, everything kind of framing. And it's tough to see yourself in that sometimes. It's tough to know what you might be associated with. Sometimes there is that lack of distinction for some people between role and performer. But at the end of the day, it's about doing the job and doing it well. And like I said, finding the conviction and working with a director, hopefully, to find some sense of collaboration that they are pleased with in telling the overall story.
And there is one that we haven't brought up yet, AG and After Lost.
Yes, that was a challenging one for me. A lot of the roles that I was doing at the time were super high energy and just, all out, conviction. But for AG, just having to bring it all back is not something that happens for me easily. Even as a person, I'm very, very outgoing. I'm bouncing around all the time. As a puppeteer, I get things into my hand, and so I'm used to projecting out with a lot of my intention and emotion. And so having to draw it back and just be very conversational about things was quite challenging. And they'd always say, okay, less, give me less. But it's always nice to have those roles that truly, oh yeah, it's not a performance. This is a person. I need to bring that groundedness, that reality to it. Going back to the question, I just looked down again. The character that I played on My Hero Academia,
okay, yeah,
was nicknamed Blades. And he was responsible for shooting the bullets that I can't remember names right now, but that takes away the quirk.
Oh, Mirio, yeah.
Yeah, and so going into that session with Colleen, she was like, hey, this is going to be really, really intense. I need you to know that off the bat, both in terms of vocal strain and also where we're going with this. Then you get to that moment of desperation that he has, and he ends up juicing himself.
Yeah.
So his quirk, expounds and, exponentially becomes so much bigger. And so having to go from broken demeanor and just, defeat to, a drug, an overdose essentially of endorphins, and just explosion of energy, being able to keep all of that retained within the same character was a really fun challenge. And then surprisingly, they included the character in the game, My Hero 1 2. So I got to go back in for even more of that. So I was really, really, really grateful for that, because that was such a quick but full journey for that one character. You don't get that often. So yeah.
And I was saving Mitsuba for later on now, but
oh, little baby. Right there.
What were your thoughts, like the first, like stepping into him, like the first thing that you thought of?
So the first episode that we recorded was just at the end of the episode, I believe. And so I had no idea where the character was going. The next episode hadn't been released yet, but they had clues based on the manga and everything that there was a darker, sweeter side to the hysterics. But the first episode we recorded was hysterics would probably be the way to start it there. But that episode that we get to go back and see a little bit, and they create the friendship was really, really lovely. And I easily cry as a person quite often. Just you show me a picture of a baby, I'll probably cry. A shared human experience, I'll cry. Music, I'll cry. I remember that one being a real struggle to get through at times, just because it was so like beautifully simple in what the character needed in order to find a way to move on.
Right.
And I think the payoff in that episode, I don't want to say what it is in case somebody hasn't seen it, but I think the end of that episode and everything about it just brought it all back down to this very beautiful, wholesome moment out of an absolutely chaotic character.
And with that first scene, like when he's freaking out and like accusing Tyson's character of wanting to use him for blackmail and porn and stuff. Was that entire take, like did you have to do that multiple times to get that?
Because we didn't know what direction we were going with it, so we did several different kind of iterations real quick.
Okay.
But I think we probably only did 5 takes total, because we were trying to also figure out the pitch and where I could sit comfortably and maintain. because we knew we were starting here to begin with, but then you have to rise, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, ooh, yeah, those were some sessions where it was like, okay, breathe, here we go, and then you just launch, because once the train starts, you just got to keep it going.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was just a really, really neat one to, you know, also to come in toward the end of the series when everybody, you know, there was quite a base to begin with, for people watching the show, and so just to be brought into the fold and to see people react so positively to it was really, really great. I'm very appreciative for that.
Is one of the most recent anime you've worked on with playing the Scissor Sorcerer and Sleepy Princess?
I've done more since. I don't know what else come out though.
Okay.
But Scissor Sorcerer was another one that was just so. I feel very honored sometimes when I get brought into a session and they say, we were trying to figure out who could do this character justice, and the name that kept coming up was Kyle, because Lord knows what he'd do. Is a huge compliment to me that I've gotten a few times throughout my career. It's like, oh, we don't know who else to give this to. Let's see what Kyle does with it. Just being given kind of okay, let's see what happens. That sort of carte blanche to go. You know, obviously you have the base of what they want, and they kind of, you know, throwing a dart at a board of giving you some direction sometimes for those characters. But yeah, Scissor Sorcerer. I love when I can surprise a director too.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I do anything to intentionally mislead or you know, yuck it up, but when what comes out of my mouth can surprise what they expected of me, and they're willing to go along with that collaboration, that's always some of the most thrilling parts of the process. And Scissor Sorcerer, I just remember there were hums, there were laughs that we got to add in, small moments, small intonations, notices that weren't necessarily in the Japanese version, just because it felt right to me in the moment, and so I threw it out there as we're recording the scene. You know, I love being able to do larger chunks of a scene,
Mm-hmm.
because then you can ride it and know exactly where you were and what take they're probably going to use. But sometimes when you do, you know, 3 or 4 takes of a line, then you move on to the next one, and you don't know how it's all going to fit together. It's a little bit harder to gauge where your energy is and how you can sort of ride it through the entire scene, you know. Oh yeah, Kai in Actor Songs Connection was another one. I mean, he was described as princely, honest. The very first episode was very much, oh, I can show you the clubs, please, I can help. And then by the end of the series, he was a maniac.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just based on kind of what was happening in the booth and some of the reactions he was having, and the way he would tease some of the other characters. You know, there's a little bit of chaos under the surface, and so they let me play with that, which was really, really wonderful. Just to again have that scope of emotion, that range of what a character can do. It's not always about being princely and doing exactly what's on paper, and especially in that show where it turns out that everything's crazy by the end. Those are some of my favorite moments, being able to truly collaborate and find how our energy would create the character. And that's also a challenge with doing dubs, because it's already been timed, it's already been directed for the Japanese version, and then we have to make our story fit.
Mm-hmm.
What you might not know, because it's not on any of the pages, I don't think, but I also got to help write for a show. This is the Japanese version of the DVD that I got.
Okay.
But I got to work with Howard Wang on writing that. Howard and also Emily Fajardo. They were the lead writers on that, and I did a lot of supplemental writing and trying to find the distinction between the Japanese story that's being told and then how we can either localize it here or switch it up to work with this particular set of actors and directors and creative team. That was a huge load of fun that we got to do a few years ago. And if you haven't seen it, it's wild. It's
Mm-hmm.
all over the map, but it's super, I think, entertaining in the end. If you get to check that one out in English, I think it might be on Amazon Prime in English. I don't know for sure though. Don't quote me on that. It's already being recorded. You might check it out.
Well, outside of Umineko, is there anything that you can like safely talk about that, like most recently that you've recorded? Or
I I can't say what. I think a lot of people will surmise in the end. But just yesterday, I got to return to a character for the first time in a while. Whew, kind of tough to get back in those shoes at first, but I think we got there. And I've got more recording coming up for that.
Okay.
And new season just got. We've been doing auditions for the past several weeks for the new seasons that I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
But yeah. And like I said, I've been doing a lot of theater stuff also. So that's another part of my life that's also balanced back and forth of what I can and can't talk about. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, the final question that I do for interviews is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
That is a good question. Legacy is such a funny thing because you have no control over it yourself in the end. But you can add to it, obviously, by being yourself, being true to who you are. Not to go down, too sentimental a road, but I would hope that to borrow something from Jim Henson, I hope to leave the world a better place than when I got here. And I think our calling as a performer and as an artist is to make sure that even though our name might not be around, that something that we've done will have affected those around us in a way that makes the world a slightly brighter place. That's a lot of what I do. I mentioned earlier, I cry at babies and music sometimes, but the shared human experience is one of my favorite things. And so I just hope to be able to contribute to somebody else's life in a way that gives them fulfillment and empowerment. I think that's what we're missing a lot of these days is feeling empowered. Especially with social media, we constantly are told to compare ourselves to others, or it's constantly force fed into us of what somebody else is doing. But I think in the end, it's all about what we can do that we're proud of, and hopefully in doing so we can pass something on to others. I love being a teacher. Like I said, I love being able to collaborate because it means that we're creating something that didn't exist before, and that's pretty special. And going from a theater world where it's such a fleeting moment, that moment where you take a breath, in pandemic times, it has a whole new meaning. But sharing the same air, the same space, the same darkness with hundreds, thousands of strangers, essentially, but all sharing this collective emotion, this collective moment. That's why I love theater. I will always return to theater because there's something inherently and absolutely magic about those shared experiences. I mean, and to think, like I said earlier, also being able to share some of my performances in anime in something that I know is going to be there long after I will be in digital form or whatever, but being able to pass that particular moment in time down to my nieces and nephews, and also my grandma. My grandma was able to watch that one. That was pretty special. And then also, I think we forget to mention sometimes being able to share these moments with friends. One of the shows that I'm most proud of, one of the animes that I'm most proud of dubbing is Kato, The Right Answer, which if you haven't checked it out, I really like it. I was really thrilled to be a part of that. It was a daunting project. It's sci-fi, it's slice of life, it's crazy kooky sometimes, but I got to share that experience with some of my dear friends, including Tabitha Ray as director and Ian Mead Moore, who played the lead on the show. And being able to walk into a booth and know kind of what he's going to do, and being able to play off each other throughout was a really wonderful experience. So yeah, I think it's all about sharing and realizing that it's not a singular art form. And that goes beyond just the booth and the creative teams as well. That's going out into the community and being there for people when they need it. So.
Have you, if there is like a single one that you can pick, is there like a fan interaction that someone has reached out to you to say a role that you did or like a performance in anime helped them in some way?
I had a few people reach out from Mitsuba, and but it was a very, very humbling experience for me as well. It was a reminder that what we do is more than just entertainment. It can matter and often does. I have gotten some fan art sent to me with just thank yous for Giovanni and some of the other roles. And especially in the past couple of years, what everybody needs is a little bit of laughter, and so that's mostly what I've gotten. Again, going back to empathy. but yeah, like we were talking about, it's, you know, it's always a nice reminder that you're not alone.
Right.
You know, and I do what I can, you know, when I can. But that's the other amazing thing too. Like I think I mentioned it earlier, just seeing the communities of people. Like, you know, you don't have to talk to me about it, but there are people out there talking to each other about it, and that's pretty incredible to see. Because in the end, we're all just people. We're all just people trying to do our best. So.
Right. There was one thing I forgot to bring up. I don't know if the credit is right, but I saw on IMDb that you got to be a part of that Jim Carrey show. Kidding?
I did not. No,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of. I would love that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I think that was probably misinterpreted by somebody along the line, because I got to do a death battle.
Oh, okay.
As the Mask, as the Jim Carrey version of the Mask.
Right.
Which I grew up with, just held in such high esteem. And that entire session was another one. So I have a habit of going into Sound Cadence and just sweating up the booth to the point where you can't see me, making it a personal sauna. And I literally writing on the windows, help and, those sorts of things. But that session doing Death Battle with Marissa was insane. More. And Jim Carrey goes at 1,000% at all times. And so trying to that energy in any way was super fun, super daunting. And yeah, at the end of that, I was like, I am going to go home. I'm going to make myself a drink and we're going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
That was another really fun one, because it was also a big episode for them. So I got a lot of fun attention there. And yeah, I'm guessing just the mixture of that recording and then me being a puppeteer, probably.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so sorry I was late. Like I said, it's just my brain is everywhere right now, and we're heading to Italy tomorrow, so gonna have a great time. Gonna have some fun. Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for this. Thanks for reaching out. Like I said, living in a void of a booth, sometimes it's easy to forget that there are other people out there. So thank you for what you're doing and for bringing attention to all of us. And if you ever need anything, let me know. We're here. So.
Yeah, thanks. You were actually my 81st interview, I think. Wow. Yeah. So yeah.
Awesome. Since when?
Since last August. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You're killing it. Woo! I feel like I gotta go do something now. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, we'll see you again next time.
Yeah. Okay.
Take care.